Arrow Season 4, Episode 15, Taken. This was actually a pretty fun episode. I was very excited to see Vixen come into play, and I think visually they did her powers really well. Every time she touched the totem or every time she just switched her powers, because technically she doesn't have to touch it, but I think it's something like it's faster or easier, if she physically touches it. But I thought visually they did her powers pretty well. I kind of wish she had a bigger role in this episode. I know they did that because she does technically have her own show with the animated thing, which I love that they did that because I was like, we had an animated encounter. I was like, ha, funny. But I like getting to see her come into play. I thought that was pretty cool. They actually showed the skyline of Detroit. They use basically the same footage everyone uses, or the same shot, which is technically footage from Canada. Across the water, you get to see the Renaissance Center is what that is, the GM building. So that was pretty cool. So that was a nice little thing. I was like, oh, they actually use footage of Detroit. Because sometimes people don't. They just say they're in Detroit. I know Supernatural's done that before. Last time they showed Detroit, they actually had some like CG buildings of ours. They had, I don't know if they took pictures or what the case was, but they had some of our like staple buildings from downtown Detroit in this shot. I was like, oh, they at least did that, because last time they were just like, we're in Detroit. It's like, we don't have that Chinese restaurant in Detroit. But anyway, I liked her character. It was pretty cool. We got to see her fly. We got to see her run at super speed. We got to see her use super strength. Of course, that being the only ability that they can have, or they don't need to add in CG. But I thought it looked okay. I thought the CG was alright. The cheetah part I thought was like a little so-so, because especially with it being super speed, it was just like, because they made it so quick, it's like, that looks a little weird. And the flying is just flying. Like, unless it's like the Supergirl stuff, where they mostly do wire work, which I actually really like in Supergirl, it's flying, and it's gonna look CG, so that was just like, meh, but it was still fine. I liked her character. I liked that, you know, they, you really have to see the animated series to like know her character, because they don't bother going through the whole backstory. But I like the fact that they do put that in there a little bit, and it's like basically the totem allows me to connect with any animal spirit and gain their abilities. And I thought it was cool that they threw that in there, because I'm sure there are a ton of people who didn't even know that she had a show until they did like the promo for this episode, or it was like at the end of the episode too. It was like, watch the whole first season, which is seriously 30 minutes. I mentioned that last week, but it is seriously 6 5-minute things. It's only half an hour, but it is a good half an hour. It was actually pretty sweet. So recommend checking it out if you still haven't done that, which is just crazy. You get to see how she met the characters and stuff. I forgot she met Laurel. I was looking that up last week and I saw a picture of Laurel from the animation, and I was like, I do not remember her being in that whatsoever. But a lot of stuff did happen. She, like they mentioned, that she talked to Felicity over the phone before, and I totally forgot that happened in the cartoon as well. So there's stuff I just didn't remember. I'm pretty sure that was like early last year. It was around this time last year, like a little bit later. But it was around this time last year when they actually did the show. So it's been quite a while. Plus, it was only like a 30-minute thing technically, and I watched 5 minutes every week. A little hard to keep up with such small bits of information when I'm just kind of exploring a character that I didn't really know too well anyway. But I liked her introduction in this episode for sure. She gave Oliver sort of one half of his resolution by the end of this episode, which I thought was actually pretty good. And then Diggle was like the other half, where he's like, you have to, as a parent, you're with your children every single day. And then her side of it was that as much as she wanted to be with her parents, she appreciated the freedom that she had, because she wasn't ready to have, the burden of such a lineage, as a young child. And, she actually had to take her power. In William's case, it would just be, his father's, the Green Arrow. But it was pretty good. They both had very solid points. And, of course, he found the middle ground, just like he does with pretty much every situation. And he decides, what he, chooses ultimately is both situations, because he makes the ultimate sacrifice. And I kind of wish they had it where he, really said it, because he said exactly what Diggle said to him. And I thought he would say exactly what Vixen said to him as well, where it's like, but right now I have to make, the ultimate sacrifice so that you can live your life. And then, because he mentions the 18th birthday thing, then when you're old enough, then I'll be in your life, every day. And, he said goodbye, and he was like, hopefully not forever. So he chose the middle ground, which made a lot of sense because it was incredibly dangerous. And, who knows how long they're going to be doing that for. So it made a lot of sense. Definitely, a sad moment for Oliver. He was so close to crying. I kind of wanted him to just break down because we do not see that. But Stephen Amell kind of held it in. I was like, there were certain moments where it looked like he was going to do like Flash style crying, like he was about to like break down into tears, but I think he held it back. But I was like, I kind of would like to see him like fully break down because we don't get to see that from Oliver nearly enough. But mostly because it's Oliver and he just beats everyone up, and he's only lost like so many people. But I would love to have seen him like fully break down in that scene. That would have been really good. It was still good without it, but I would have really loved that because I was like, man, we don't see Oliver like ugly cry, as everyone calls it. So I think that would have been good for him. It would have made the scene even more impactful, but it was really good either way. And then it led to a really crazy scene with Felicity where she decides to break up. And ultimately, when that happened, excuse me, when that happened, dang, that was like a huge difference in my voice. But when that happened, it was kind of sad. I was like, man, I couldn't believe that she was doing that because she learned the truth from Samantha that Oliver was given an ultimatum, which he easily, like, she was right though, and she was like, you're the only person that finds the truth complicated. He could have easily said, like, she gave me an ultimatum, which was a crazy ultimatum. And I believe Laurel was the one that said that, like, who does that, or, who gives that type of ultimatum. But, she found out the truth and everything, and ultimately, as crappy as it was that I felt that she did, I was like, it really sucks to see them break up. You can't argue against her reasoning because it's like, he could have told her and nothing would have happened. And, things would have happened the exact same way. And plus, you have to look at it from her point of view, where it's like, you could have told me and everything would have been exactly the same. But also, Barry knows, Thea knows, Malcolm knows, Darhk found out because of Malcolm, which they find out at the end. And it's just like, all these different people know that he has a son, and it's like, she's just like crushed by that. So there are a couple of layers there. And it's interesting what's going to happen because, that scene was just crazy. Like, all of it was just like a great ending to this episode because it starts off with him making the video for his son, and then it's them talking, and she puts the ring down, and then she's getting mad at him, and it's like, you can lean on me, like, that's what marriage is about. And she had great points. Just, they both did, but you can definitely see where she's coming from because he hides so many things when it could have been simple to tell the truth. Even when after she found out, he still wouldn't tell her the very uncomplicated truth of it was an ultimatum. And basically, you say that it's one or the other. Everyone knows what an ultimatum is. But, as she's getting angry, her foot moves, and Felicity's walking. And it was very fast. That really surprised me. I honestly was not expecting them to do Felicity walking again so soon. I really thought this was going to be for a very long time. Like, maybe until, like, towards the end of the season. But they made it very quick. And I don't hate that because I knew she'd be walking anyway, so it doesn't even bother me that it was so fast. Because I'm like, I honestly felt zero tension when she got paralyzed. I'm like, I'm pretty sure she's going to walk again. Mostly due to the whole Batman thing, because everyone's like, oh, it's, too close to Batman. They could not make her like Oracle, so I knew she was going to walk. So there was never any tension, so the fact that it happened faster didn't really bother me whatsoever. But as soon as she moved and she started to stand, I was like, what's great about symbolism is that she can walk away. And that's exactly what she did, because I thought she was walking and it was going to be like, holy crap, I can move my legs and stuff. And it was like, he's stunned and everything. And I thought it was going to end there because it kind of did like a pan backwards. But she stands up, and, when she got next to the pillar, that's why I thought she was still kind of figuring it out and she was, going to walk. But no words. He said Felicity because he was stunned, she's stunned. And it's just like, well, look at this door that I'm just going to walk right out of. And she just closed it behind her with 0 words. And I was like, man, like, just there were so many things in that because, of course, she's finally able to walk, and the whole thing is like, oh, we can walk. I really wanted to walk down the aisle, and as soon as she moved, that was the thing that was symbolic to me. It's like the symbolism is that she's able to walk, and of course it's during this argument that says there will be no aisle for her to walk down. Like she can walk, but that was the point that she was trying to get to, and of course when she's finally able to walk, it's when they're breaking up. So that was symbolic, and then she literally just walked right out. And I was like, well, that was crazy. It was kind of awkward to me. I was like, oh, she just slowly walked out because she could have easily just fallen back down. Like we don't know. She could have closed the door and just like boom and just collapsed. But it was like, man, she just got up and it was like, well, I kind of said what I needed to say. I guess I can walk now, so I'm just gonna go away. But it was a crazy ending. I certainly loved the ending. I thought it was kind of devastating for Oliver. Like he just got hit with a couple things at once. But I certainly loved that ending. The realizing that Malcolm was the one that gave William up to Darhk, and he was actually we find out he was actually the one that took him. It was Malcolm. Like we knew that something was gonna be there. We knew he was, of course, the one that told Damien Darhk, but the fact that Thea asked him and he's like, you should know me better than that. I really thought she would come to the conclusion like you definitely did it because she says like I know you all too well. I figured her conclusion, even if she didn't know 100% early on, I figured her conclusion was going to be you did do it. I don't have proof that you did it, but I'm going to believe that you did. But she still kind of was sort of in between until she got like the facts at the end of the episode, and he was super pissed. He was really mad at that, like you'd be dead 10 times over, and I trained you in this and that, and all I got is your venomous spite, which I feel is very untrue because when he saved her life in the end of the second season, she was with him training for like wasn't it like 6 months, or like half a year, 8 months, something crazy like that, and she was like calling him dad and all this stuff, and they're laughing it up. I'm like, that was not spite whatsoever, and her world was like shattered that season because she found out that he was her actual father, and she went with him because he saved her. And it was like from that point on, it wasn't, she called him dad and stuff like that. And I'm like, that was zero spite there. That was full training with that's like, father daughter bonding time is all they had in between those seasons. And he's like, all I got is venomous spite. I'm like, that's not true. And then when they had their first conversation in the episode, Thea made like one of the best moments because she was like, "Oh, I heard the part about the story where you're gonna let me die too," and he's just like. And I was glad she called him out on it because that's what he did. He was acting like it was for the fate of the world and stuff like that. Which, and I mentioned this during that episode, he really thought Nissa was gonna try to take over the world, which made sense. But even when he was wrong, there was nothing else behind it. So it's just like, he's just the bad guy again, and that's all there is to it. So I don't know what the heck's going to be happening with Merlin in these upcoming episodes. He's in the preview, so they're talking about like the whole mission from the first season, so I don't know what the heck that's supposed to be about. But Damien Darhk is still in it, despite the fact that they destroyed his totem, so they got rid of his magical source, which I thought was really awesome. But at the same time, is Oliver gonna try to turn things around like, hey, I'm running for mayor again, or is he gonna stay out of the race because he already did that? And it was kind of funny they mentioned he was still up by 16 points, but he did all of that and kind of shut everything down. But I'm sure they still own the building because that's where the layer is. So I don't know. Oh, I think that's where the layer is. I don't remember. Like I guess they have two layers. There's still one inside of the tower or inside the building or whatever. But they obviously have the one inside of the office, which is somewhere random. But I don't know. I thought that was actually pretty interesting because they got rid of his power, but he's still going to be a villain. I'm sure he could find another totem because, as Vixen mentioned, everyone she fought that has magic has a totem, so he could probably just find another magical totem to, siphon his power from. But he's down for the count. Malcolm is probably even more pissed at Oliver now that, Thea knows, so he's probably even angrier. Not that that really matters, but he's gonna be super mad or whatever. But I like what they did in this episode. They changed some things up for sure. Oliver now has his son who is seemingly out of the picture. I mean, we still have whoever's in that grave. I know he said in the video, like, I told your mother to take you away and not tell anyone, including me. So I would assume that they're both safe, but I don't know. Like, we still really don't know. Obviously, it's not Felicity. Also, based on what happened in this episode, I don't think they're together when they're in the limo. I think they're in the limo because whoever died, they were, like, really closely related to. Or, because obviously, they're all basically family at this point. But I don't know. I don't know if they're together or not. And I thought about that scene really early on because when they're going through the parking lot, Felicity asks Oliver, like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Am I okay?" And it made me think of when they were in the limo because he sits down and then she asks him first because kind of what she said, like, I knew you were going to ask me, so I thought I beat you to the punch. And it instantly made me think of that. So I don't know if they're together or, what the deal is based on them being in there because she can walk, but also it was clearly like way after the funeral because no one was there except for Barry who showed up late. So, there's still a possibility that they're together and she just waited in the car for him. But I don't know. Like it's really hard to tell. Like I don't know. And there have been notes that she wasn't wearing her ring during that scene, so they probably never end up getting back together, and that's 3 months. That's still about 3 months away, I believe. So apparently they just don't end up working things out, and Felicity is just gonna keep on walking. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to this next episode, though. I really enjoyed this one. I thought the action was pretty good. Um, I think the action was really odd in this episode because they had like a couple of action scenes, and mostly I think it was like the house scene, really, because pretty much every scene kept ending with Damien just like choking people. So it was like they'd fight like a tiny bit, and then he'd be like force choking people, and then the fights are over. It's just a tense scene after that. But um, Thea and Laurel were awesome in this episode. They had like another little kind of team up deal, and I'm really loving that stuff. So when they were going through the hallway, that was pretty cool. And Oliver fights some people on the rooftop before that as well. And they kind of fight Damien, but basically he's just like, using the force and throwing people around. I did love the fact that we got to see his power wasn't like ultimate because when Vixen used her ability, I believe it was to use the power of a gorilla. He had to use both hands to kind of throw her to the ground. Because I always assumed he just could stop whatever. It was just his magic. It was just boom, you stop. But it does have to be weak enough. So I thought that was actually interesting that we got to see that. A couple other things that happened during that fight, which were very interesting, or during the scene in general. After Oliver lands on the roof and he's fighting the people and stuff, there's one person, and this happens every once in a while, but punched he punched in one direction, the guy's face went in another direction. Like he punched like this, and the guy was like, "Oh," and he went the opposite way. And I caught that as soon as it happened. I thought it was really funny. And then when Thea and Laurel were going down the stairs, the door just opens up, and of course they do that in like pretty much every TV show. There's always someone opening and closing the doors behind them. But it just opened before they even got there, and I was like, they probably should have thought about how weird that looks because it didn't. You could clearly see the doors open, and then Thea just walks down, and I'm like, that looks super super weird because they just had the person open the door for them. And I was like, that just came off looking really weird to me. So I wanted to mention those two little things. I don't know if you guys noticed them, but they really stood out. Like I always notice when they do the punch and the person's face goes the opposite way because I don't know, for whatever reason when someone does a punch, I'm like actually following the punch, and he punched right and the guy's face went left. I was just like, sometimes it just goes backwards. And I was thinking of all this stuff when that happened. I was like, maybe the choreography was mixed up, maybe the guy was mixed up, maybe Oliver was mixed up, Stephen Amell. But it just caught my attention, so I wanted to bring that up. But I enjoyed this episode. I think it sucks that we have to wait a month to see what's going to happen because I can't really think of where it could really go. I mean, obviously they're going to have the Felicity Oliver stuff where they're having their issue and I guess not working on it or not working it out if considering the future scene, Felicity still doesn't have the ring on. So I'm guessing they don't technically figure it out in the future. Oliver has to deal with, of course, the fact that his son is going to be gone for a super long time, which we may or may not get an answer to in Legends of Tomorrow this week, which I'm kind of looking forward to because I wasn't sure how they were going to do the story. So I was kind of excited. I'm like, I wonder where they're going to end this because that will determine what they talk about in the Legends of Tomorrow episode. So because they ended it this way, where he sent his son off, and it's like, I'm not sure how old his son is, so I'll say like, I guess he's about 8 or 10. So in about 8 to 10 years, his son will be 18. They can kind of do that. I think they're way further than that. So wherever it is in the timeline, they can technically talk about it because they ended it, in this episode. So I'm kind of looking forward to the Legends of Tomorrow stuff even more now because I want to see what they say about his son and what happened with all that stuff. So I'm looking forward to that. But I enjoyed this episode. Glad to see Vixen come into play. Excuse me. I was hoping that they were showing that it was going to be a season 2 of Vixen when they showed the animated stuff, but they're just saying check out the first season, which is worth checking out if you still haven't. Definitely, definitely really good. And plus, with it being animated, the flying doesn't look, it's not CG. It's 2D and it looks way cooler. Um, Also, you get to see Barry and Oliver work together to kind of take her on because they don't know that whether she's good or bad. They just know she's a metahuman, or at least they think she is because they don't know about the magic stuff. But definitely check it out if you haven't. Like this episode. Looking forward to whatever they're gonna do with Darhk. I mean, he's got no magic now, but of course he's still with Hive, and he's been living for however long he's been living. So, kind of looking forward to seeing where they take his character now that he doesn't have magic. It just makes me wonder what evil, because sometimes when villains lose like that ultimate power, they become even more awesome because they get like super super evil because they have to use their mind. So I'm hoping that's where they take his character because I like the crazy mental type characters, and clearly he's very nuts. I don't know if he's Malcolm crazy because I don't know. I don't know. Malcolm's just Malcolm, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with his character for sure. But I definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I want to know what you guys think about Oliver and Felicity breaking up. I normally wouldn't even care about any relationship stuff, but just the way that they did it, I think was, and is worth talking about because it starts off with the video thing to his son, and then they have the conversation, and Felicity's still upset with him because ultimately she's right. He still could have told her, and it literally would have been the exact same situation. And it's Felicity, who she, come on, you can trust her. But I do want to know what you guys think about that and the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.